Okay, so hello everyone again, and welcome to the third edition of the Chain Abstraction Community Call. Nice to see you all again. So yeah, what are these calls for? I've been having to think about this lately. So there's a few things like announcements, like reiterate chain abstraction release. We'll talk about that a bit. Sharing of ideas. So often we have people come and present like what they're building, and this can help people have ideas for what they want to build and like how others have done that, and then people can give feedback and be like, hey, why didn't you do it this way? And we can try and work on these calls to try and reduce like unnecessary overlap and foster collaboration. So if we realize that two people are working on the same thing, hey, why don't we work together, and align on important issues and other things. So for example, I think it was on the last call, we had a repo we were discussing, and we were talking about like naming conventions for the library. So things like that. Yeah, everyone's free to talk and get involved and whatnot, but we have some proposed topics to start with. So chain signatures release, I'm sure everyone knows that by now. Defuse, I think we have someone from there coming on to talk about Defuse, which is like multi-chain DEX infrastructure. Then, well, this one isn't really chain abstraction. I suppose this is a chain abstraction, chain signatures call. So using chain signatures to derive and use other near accounts. Benji will take the lead on that one. And then any other further discussion that people want to bring up. So, David, did you have anything you wanted to say about the mainnet release further to that?
Just that I'm really proud of the team's work on it. Like it was, it's out, it's working, give it a go. Really proud of the team's work on our end. Like the engineers working a lot to get it out, and Kendall's team at Proximity doing all the marketing. I was super impressed with like watching Defuse and Bitter's demo and all these kind of things coming together, the things we've been working on. So just, I guess my point is, I'm generally very happy about how things have gone. The network's chugging along happily. Post-launch, obviously we're going to have, teams going to take a bit of time off. The sort of 1.01 release is maybe we're going to cut down a little bit on how much gas it costs to call it, because it's a bit high right now. We didn't quite have enough time to optimize that down before launch. And then just it's going to be making it a bit more robust over the next month, and then on to scaling an EDDSA. So that's hopefully a more low latency way of using it. So we're hoping to do a sort of sub 1 second latency sign process here by the end of the year. Even if you have to maybe be a little sort of near parallel to do it. So yeah, it's really excited. I really, really believe in this product. Our team is betting everything on it. And we're going to see, basically try and get as many people signing as many things as possible. So yeah, really happy you guys all came to the call.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that there's so many products already like ready to launch and launching. It's just amazing. Does anyone want to add on to that? Well, I think there's
by David's team for sure. You personally, and then also David's team and everybody else who's involved. Yeah, just seconding that. Super excited.
Great job, everyone. I'm glad it's here. So, just in time. Do we want to move on to Defuse then? I'm sure you guys heard a little bit about it yesterday. Yeah, congrats everyone. So shall we move on to Defuse? Do you have any slides you want to share? I can take down my screen and we can dive into that. Hey, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to do this. I have some slides, I can share it.
So I'll stop presenting.
Okay. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen. So hello everybody. Congratulations everyone with the launch of the chain signatures on the mainnet. That's a tremendous achievement. And that's absolutely a great thing to see, especially because of the different projects that now can use this great infrastructure for the benefit of building themselves out. And one of such projects is called Defuse. This is something that we are working with multiple partners on. By saying we, I'm saying Aurora Labs. And we get quite a bunch of support from the near side. So big thanks for contributing into this indeed open protocol. And I'm going to shortly talk about this protocol here, right? So we were starting with the very simple idea that in the world of crypto at the moment, centralized exchanges are the dominant markets. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, up until recently, decentralized exchanges have been constituting approximately like 10% of the total volume of the trades. And the reason for this is pretty simple. Centralized exchanges have absolutely great user experience. They allow you to trade assets extremely fast. However, they also have problems, and the problems are usually concentrated in the letter C, which is centralized. Centralization is a problem, and it bears quite a lot of risks. So we have all see centralized exchanges being hacked, being misusing of the user funds and stuff like that. Besides that, they are very slow in the addition of additional networks and also with addition of new assets. If you will take a look at the major centralized exchanges, they are usually supporting only 3 L2 solutions. These are Optimism, Arbitrum, and Base, and no others. However, there are already approximately 100 of L2s, or even more than that, that are launched. So that's the slowness. On the other hand side, we have decentralized exchanges. Unfortunately, they are mostly limited to a single blockchain, but they are also given a very fast trading experience. But the problems with the liquidity, the problem with the usage, inability to have the multi-chain assets trading on these exchanges, all of this contributes to not a very high usage of decentralized exchanges. But they are very robust since everything is located in the smart contracts, and unless there is a bug in a smart contract, which also can be circumvented with the proper security measures around the projects. Unless that's the case, decentralized exchanges are extremely robust and they are working 24/7 without any limitations. So there is an idea of bridging this gap in between these two and create a new type of product that is going to be decentralized, permissionless, however, will deliver great user experience and ability to work with the multi-chain assets, and obviously the core technology that enables of creation of such a product is chain signatures. So we are developing such a project. It is called Defuse. At the moment, it's in the alpha stage. And what Defuse is, it is a scalable multi-chain DeFi infrastructure that facilitates the creation and trading of financial instruments with minimized centralization risks while unifying liquidity across crypto ecosystems. And if we are going to dive a little bit deeper into this thing, then the features that were mentioned on the previous slides are obviously multi-chain, right? So this is what chain abstraction and specifically chain signatures is bringing in Defuse. So an ability to trade tokens from different networks. Defuse also has an intent-based architecture that's a kind of more or less new architecture in comparison with the AMM style architecture that was existing before. Intents are allowing us to create a really scalable and horizontally scalable protocol that utilizes all of the power of the near blockchain. It also is pretty flexible in terms of defining how people are trading. So, for example, users will be able to specify which market makers they would like to work with. And this is a new piece of functionality that is not existent neither on decentralized AMM style exchanges nor in decentralized exchanges. Moreover, Diffuse brings us through chain signatures much more than just spot assets trading. It brings us the concept of account fi and a concept of trading accounts. And these accounts can have multiple different stores of value inside of it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. All of the contracts in Diffuse have sharded design, and that's very specific. And that's a very intentional thing that we are doing to make sure that Diffuse will never ever have a bottleneck, and it will be able to support any amount of users that are onboarded to the Near protocol. And last but not least, it is a fully open protocol. So anyone is, as I was saying on the previous slide, everyone is able to create their own financial instruments, launch them, and trade them using Diffuse protocol. We're thinking of Diffuse as a three-party marketplace. On one hand side, there are distribution channels and users who are willing to use it. On the other hand side, there are active market participants, the ones who are actively seeking for the intents that were created by the users and are trying to fill in these intents. These parties are usually referred to as market makers or solvers. And there is a third part, which is kind of not directly presented during the intent execution, and this part is ecosystems or founders who are launching tokens or launching new financial instruments there. All of these parties are connected with each other. Founders are willing to have an exposure to the users, so most probably in between the distribution and founders, there are some incentives that are distributed. Founders also are willing, market makers and solvers, to create markets for their assets and their financial instruments. So there might be, for example, agreements on the liquidity provisioning from founders to the market makers, while market makers are trying to convince distribution channels to work with them. So there might be some rebates in between these two parties. Diffuse is at a very, very early stage of the development. It is kind of semi-existent, semi-not. There are not a lot of marketing around it. So it's only calls like this where you're able to find a little bit of information about Diffuse. It is available in alpha version. You are able to find all of the existing information about Diffuse on diffuse.org. And you can try out to swap near native assets on Diffuse right here, right now. Moreover, we are happy to announce that right after the development and deployment on the mainnet of the chain signatures, we already have for now in the staging environment an ability to trade on Diffuse Bitcoin and also Base assets from the EVM chain, L2 base. So pretty soon this functionality is going to land directly on the app.diffuse.org. And diving a little bit deeper into the features, right? As I was saying, that it's much more than just a single spot trading. It is the whole concept of account fi, and it brings to us lots of different things. And first of all, I would like to stop on the remittance use case. So through Diffuse, people who are willing to have an exposure to the multi-chain assets, since these assets are going to be controlled by the Near-based accounts, it also means that these assets can be transferred by Near-based accounts at speed and cost that is typical to the Near blockchain, which means that the cost of transaction, of transferring of any token on any blockchain will be the cost of transaction on Near, which is below a single cent. So it's a fraction of a cent. And the speed for this transaction is not more than just a couple of seconds. Besides that, since the accounts can be traded now, suddenly non-fungible tokens can also be traded on the Diffuse platform, and even more, soul-bound token that were created as non-transferable assets that are just nailed to the account, since account can be traded now, also can be traded. So Diffuse does a disruption of any products that were based on the fact of the association in between the user and potentially the user identity and his account, because account can be traded. Diffuse also introduces a new types of use cases. So, for example, at the moment, as you all know, the airdrop farming or the participation in some activities on some platforms that have announced or are in the anticipation of the future airdrop of the tokens. This process is somewhat kind of one-sided at the moment. People are usually participating in such an airdrop farming activities, and then at the moment when there is an airdrop that happens, users are typically quickly reducing their exposure to the associated asset. And because everybody are doing this at one particular point in time, this may be a very, very devastating event for the ecosystems. So instead of doing this, people now through Diffuse will be able to liquidate their positions in the airdrop farming before the actual airdrop happened. So the person have been participated in the activities, but he would like to capitalize on it. So he would like to sell his account. Now with Diffuse, he's able to do this. It's a pretty new concept, and I believe that Diffuse is going to be pretty positive for the airdrop movement in general, because it is going to smooth out the distribution or the cashing out from the airdrop activities. Besides that, any other financial products can be deployed on Diffuse, including perp, including derivatives, lending markets, multi-chain financial products like multi-chain index tokens, and many, many, many different things. And obviously, all of this is available for the whole Near ecosystem, including Aurora mainnet users and anyone who is launching their chains using the Aurora virtual chains. With that, I encourage everyone to follow the updates from Diffuse. We're super, super excited for building this project. Again, as I said, there are lots of contributors, there are lots of partners who are working together with us. I extend to all of them big thanks for support. And the only thing that is left for me to say to all of you, join the revolution today. Let's make the blockchain trading indeed in the format and in the way that it deserves to be: decentralized, multi-chain, and with a great user experience. By the way, we're also hiring for Diffuse, so check out diffuse.org/jobs, and just follow the news of the project. There are quite a lot of different things that we are going to share in the nearest future. Thanks.
Oh no, not the mirror.
I'm sorry, it's not my usual setup, so I have only one screen, so I cannot turn it off without the mirroring.
Thanks for that presentation. Are you okay opening it up to like any questions? Sorry, I'll say that again. Are you okay to take any questions? I didn't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
If there are any questions, happy to answer.
I'd be curious to hear like more about how you're doing the account swap. Is it via like NFT standards like others have been doing?
It's not directly like that. The way how it works is that, like, very important thing for us is to make sure that Diffuse is scalable, right? So unfortunately, the way how the usage of the chain signature is happening is that there are what we call in the architecture of Diffuse, what we called account shards. So these are the sharded smart contracts of Diffuse who hold the keys from the accounts on the other networks. So the chain signatures, the way how chain signatures are working is that these keys are attributed to the near accounts, right? So we are spawning many different account shards networks, and they are holding keys from different accounts. And inside of these account shards, literally what is written is who owns which account or who owns which key. So the way how the intents are working is that these intents are created, and then people are depositing kind of inside of these intents their ownership of such an accounts. So you can think of this as well, maybe a little bit similar to the non-fungible tokens, right? So you can they deposit in these, but it's not just not implemented as an NFT standard. And then other people are coming and swapping into other account or maybe into some fungible tokens on near side, and then the intent is closed, and the execution of the intent is facilitated by the near side smart contracts.
Does anyone have any other questions? Because if not, I'm going to ask more. Wait a minute.
I could probably ask you a few things.
Go on.
Right. So is this an open source project or will it be?
Yeah, the intention is to make it fully open source. We are developing multiple pieces here. So there is one piece is the protocol itself. It contains two big pieces, right? These account shards and how the people are operating with accounts on the other networks. There is a second part, which is the actual financial instruments. They are the same as intents. And to any of these pieces, you will be able to contribute, and also you will be able to reuse this. This is fully open source thing. We also develop the solver functionality that is going to be open source and available to everybody, so that anyone will be able to take it, launch it, and become a market maker for their own token, or maybe for some additional tokens, right? So some other tokens already existent. There are some pieces of the solution that are going to be a little bit aside. So for the front ends, for distribution channels to connect, it will be to create a great trading experience for users. The thing that is going to be very important is an ability to receive quotes from solvers, and these quotes are typically should be done very quick. So this should not be used. This should not be implemented through the Neo protocol, but instead through some separate solution. We call this a solver bus, and within this solver bus, there will be requests for quotes for specific intents, and then the communication back from solvers and stuff like that. However, all of the settlement, obviously, for security reasons, is going to happen directly on Near blockchain. There will be no settlement happening through the solver bus, right? So, yeah. So these pieces are also going to get open sourced. The only thing, maybe the solver bus is going to be open sourced just a little bit later. Just lots of things needs to be done, right? And that's it. We would like to make sure that we are not ending up with the situation when there are multiple front ends that are working with the same smart contracts, but with different solver buses. So we would like to make sure that, and then it becomes a whole, creep of scope to upgrade everybody to one particular version. So the solver bus is going to be open sourced at the moment when we are pretty sure that it is functional, it is robust, and then it is available. Up until that moment in time, we're just going to provide API to the solver bus so that everyone is able to connect, including market makers and also front ends.
Do do you make use of some like existing infrastructure, like maybe some fast bridges for EVM networks, or like, are you going to be in collaboration with CowSwap for parts of their architecture?
Yeah,
Sounds
thanks.
like there's a lot of things related.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for this question. Indeed, there are a set of projects who are allowing for this for similar types of the architecture, including CowSwap, probably one of the most known ones. There are some other projects like Thorchain and similar ones. We are in conversations on how we are able to benefit each other. There is a very straightforward ways how this can be done. So, for example, the front ends can quote different protocols and decide where to execute these intents, right? And that's a very great way how to create a competitive landscape for this. But there is also another way, more collaborative way how solvers can use these protocols. So for the solver, they are implementing the transfers from one asset to another. So what naturally intents create, they create a disbalance in the liquidity allocated by the solvers, because they are getting some more tokens on one side and less tokens on the other side. So for solvers, it might be a natural way try to kind of balance back. And in order to do this, either Diffuse can be used or any other protocol, because why not? And in such a case, there is here a very straightforward collaboration between such protocols. So yeah, we are trying to establish all of the connections with other protocols that are moving in this direction, in order to make sure that this is, first of all, we're creating a competitive landscape, which eventually is going to convert into better prices for users, but also it will create a good place for solvers to integrate with, so they are able to easily manage their liquidity.
Cool, thanks.
Ben, thank you very much for these questions. Really in depth. You show that you're really interested in what is happening in this space.
Glad you liked it.
Any other burning questions before we move on? I think we will move on from there then. Okay, thanks a lot for that, Alex. Awesome to see what you're building. So Benji, the key master.
Yeah, so you asked me a while ago to throw together a very brief presentation. Thanks, Alex, by the way, for that. That was really neat. I can't say that this is going to be as polished and professional as your presentation, but I tried. So let me just share my screen. It's nice to see everyone again. All right, let me know if you can see this. Yeah, you're good to go. Cool. Yeah. So essentially what we kind of inceptionized or whatever is a way to control both near accounts and also give out some really neat onboarding experiences for multi-chain. So historically, what one of the products that we had and a lot of the community wanted something like this was a trial account, essentially meaning that a user that is new to the blockchain space comes to an app and they get sent a link, they click it, then they enter the app and they can start using it, right? Now, traditionally, how apps do that is they would give the user some sort of gas money, some crypto, and then that user would use that app, and great. But what a lot of people do is they take that money that they were sponsored and they go and withdraw it, and there's not really any Sybil resistance for that. Now, Near had some really neat stuff with the relayers, and so one of the products that we had offered was something called a trial account, where instead of giving someone cash, you give them an access key, and that access key has restrictions baked into it. So the account that you're essentially giving them a key that unlocks an account, but that account only has a limited access key. And so anytime you want to call a function on this target DApp, you're essentially going through that smart contract, and that smart contract has restrictions before then firing the cross contract call to the actual contract. So a very basic scenario is I'm on Mintbase and I want to use Mintbase, and I want to go and mint an NFT. So what would happen is I would use my key, go through my smart contract, and say, hey, I want to call Mintbase. And so it would check a bunch of restrictions, make sure that I'm actually trying to call Mintbase. And if all those restrictions were met, I would fire a cross-contract call over to Mintbase on behalf of my account through my contract, and it would mint the NFT. So the annoying thing with that is that you have to deploy a contract to every single account. And we tried to combat this with no STD smart contracts, really, really, really tiny smart contracts deployed to each account on the order of like 0.2 near per account. But still, that's a decent amount if you're talking about like 20,000 people, right? And the other thing is it's not scalable in that you cannot add in a whole ton of different requirements and logic into that smart contract because you're bounded by its size. And so with multichain and the MPC contract, now you no longer need to do that because you can have one smart contract, one ginormous smart contract with multi-sig, with tons of restrictions, just a really in-depth smart contract, and you only need to deploy it once, and then that will talk to the MPC contract, and then the MPC contract will generate a signature on your behalf. So now it's infinitely times cheaper than what was previously sort of thought of, and also you can have more restrictions, you can have a more in-depth sort of user model. And so let's just start this presentation here. So yeah, the multi-chain trial accounts obviously are multi-chain, so they work on any MPC compatible network. So they're way, way cheaper than what we had before. And also there's expanded benefits. So you can bake in like multi-sig, more exit conditions. You can add in extra logics, user flows, all that kind of stuff. So what does this actually look like, or what would this look like? So I just threw this together in Figma. So I land on Uniswap, and a modal pops up. Hey, welcome to Uniswap. You've been gifted like $5 worth of transactions. Enter a username. Now, this can be replaced with a social login, like login with Google, maybe. Doesn't have to be enter a username. But the sort of thinking that I had was, one, identity controls many, many, many different accounts, wallets, all that kind of stuff. And so for the purpose of this demo, I just put it as your username. Now, this can very well be a social login, sign in with Google if you want, it doesn't matter. Right, so then you create the account and it's like, congratulations, you're all set, enter Uniswap and you're in, and you can start using it. Now, again, the money that you've been gifted cannot be used for anything other than what has been outlined in the trial. So I can't take that $5 and try to log into another DApp or try to withdraw it from an exchange. I've only been gifted the money to do a very specific set of things. Now you can, because this only one contract now, you can bake in a whole ton of different restrictions. You can specify, whatever you want. Like you can specify exactly what contracts the user can call, what methods, what deposits. You can do some regex magic. You can, you can do a ton of stuff if you want. And then you can bake in exit conditions. So right now they've been gifted a sort of like ephemeral account. And so you would want it so that at some point the user sort of graduates. They've exited their trial, they finished it, and now, congrats, you can now offboard into like a real account or unlock this account, right? And so with that, you can bake in conditions like the user has to finish maybe 10 transactions on Uniswap, or they have to swap $3 worth of this coin or that coin, or do this or do that, and you can make it really granular. And so once they've exited, then essentially in that smart contract, all the restrictions pop. And so that key can then be used to sign into any other DApp. And now they can withdraw their funds or do whatever they want. But the whole point is that the money that the app sponsors for you should only be used on what it's intended for. And that's to use the app. You shouldn't be able to take that money and run with it. And one of the other cool things is potentially you can bake in, as part of the exit conditions, that you actually have to repay the sponsor. So let's say you land on, Mintbase or whatever, some other, OpenSea, and as part of your trial, you can create one NFT, and you manage to sell it for like $100. That would be really cool. But the app could be like, hey, you got $100. Why don't you send me back my 5 in order to sort of graduate, right? So you can bake in sort of repay conditions and all that kind of stuff into this. And so what does this look like from a smart contract perspective? I spent not that long on this, but it's pretty cool. So you can have one smart contract, right? So the username or your social login maps to like a vector of your experiences, and those are all just public keys. So apps can just sponsor you with all these keys, like, hey, you have a key for this app, and then another app gives you a key to that app, and this app and that app. So you have a whole bunch of keys, right? And then those keys map to like essentially who the holder is and a usage, right? So that keeps track of what you've actually done with that key so that you can compare with the exit conditions, right? And then, obviously there's trial outlines. So this has been kind of optimized so that you're not repeating a bunch of data. But the TLDR is, you can have multiple trials at once. You can expand these data structures really easily. There's also key rotation very, very simply into this. So you could do some neat stuff where you can sell these keys. You can sell experiences that you've given on a marketplace, right? So you can turn these access keys into NFTs. You can sell them. You can sell access to your account if you want very easily with this. Yeah. And so then what does it look like to actually generate a signature? Right. So I land on an app and I have my secret key, right, that I've been given. It's like a link drop, right? I land on the app, and then in that contract, I go to request a signature, right? So what does that do? It takes the key, it grabs the public key from that, and then that's mapped to the key data, which has the trial data, and then essentially the key usage. And so it says, hey, is what you're trying to do valid or not? Yes, if it is, then I'm going to fire off a call to the MPC contract to generate the signature. If it's not valid, kick back and be like, no, you're doing something wrong. So essentially, you have a middleman contract that is gating your ability to interact with the MPC contract with this sort of trial outline. So you can only reach the MPC contract and by extension, reach the valid signature if you're doing something that you're allowed to do, which is pretty neat. And so now you might be asking yourself, well, what about controlling existing near accounts? What the heck, man? That's what I signed up for. Well, it's actually pretty much exactly the same. Well, what happened? Where did my diagram go? You see it here, right? What the heck? Okay, I'll just go here.
You got to refresh the page, I think.
Well, let's just go here for now. So what about controlling near accounts? Well, if you're on a wallet like Sweat, all you need to do is, because you have the derivation path, and this is going to generate a signature for a key that may or may not belong to your near account, all you need to do is add that key, right? So once you add that key to your near account, then everything works. And you can add one key. You can preemptively add like a couple keys if you want, but you just need to add it once, and then you're valid forever, pretty much, because then that key will be on your account, and then any signature that comes from that derivation path is valid. All right. So an example use case is like someone on Sweat wants to go and try out, OpenSea or something. And so Sweat knows you and has access to your full access key. And then they will add a key corresponding to the trial or corresponding to the experience that you've been given, add that key, and then fire you over to OpenSea. And then essentially everything works as expected. And so the other cool thing is that with this contract, let me go back over here, is you have your account essentially will have your social account or your identity has access to a whole ton of different sort of wallets, I guess, or accounts on all these different chains, on all these different networks. And so this is kind of acting as like a weird multi-chain wallet contract in a sense that is like gating and controlling your signatures on behalf of these accounts. And so it also works really, really well with one-click connect. And so you can instantly log in with existing accounts through this contract into ETH apps, into Near apps with like the click of a button, assuming that we actually implement the wallet selector functionality or the wallet connect functionality. But all of this works like really, really well. And so you can instantly log into apps. You can have gated trial experiences. You can implement multi-sig all together into one smart contract. And you can expand this to do like a whole ton of other stuff because it's kind of like programming access keys that work on any chain all tied to one account or one identity. And this could also work with multiple near accounts, right? So you could have 10 different near accounts and 30 different EVM accounts, all controlled by your one social sort of login, sign in with Google, which is pretty neat. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
That's super cool, man. Like, I remember talking about this like a year ago, and it's finally happening. So how far out until we can actually use this thing?
That's a great question. As I had put here, sponsored by, I wish I had enough time to build all this cool stuff. So it really depends. Like we're in the middle of a pretty big sprint for Redacted because we're doing the whole Redacted conference in Bangkok in November. So once that's done, we may or may not be doing consensus in Denver, maybe confidential, who knows. So it all depends on whether or not I have the dev cycles, the time. But like this is all conceptual, and then, I thought about it, and it all makes sense, and it should be relatively easy to implement. I think we could do it in like a 1.5 month sprint to build up the whole contract. So maybe starting in January when I have time, I don't know. Or if someone else wants to pair on it too, right? Like it's not like I'm not saying this is my product. Well, I'm just saying this is a conceptual cool thing that you can do with something like this. So happy to pair on it, happy to build it out with other people, happy to do all that kind of stuff. And it's all open source because we don't build anything not open sourced.
That's super cool, man. Like I always thought of key bomb as like the most obvious use case for like chain signature stuff. It's like you have your key inside your key bomb, job done. I'm sure it's much harder to implement. Really happy working on this eventually when you have time.
Yeah. It's cool. It's all like link drops, but on crack, programmable link drops that you can sell and also do EVM multi-chain madness with.
I also really like the idea of like a link drop of like USDC. So you just like share a WhatsApp message, and then like you have an account with some USDC, and you can kind of like roll it into your account. As like a sort of,
yeah, that all works.
Yeah, it's an easy way to send money to your grandmother. That's cool, man. Really enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, thanks, guys.
I would say if someone wants to build this cool stuff, how can they reach out to you the best? On Telegram or? Yeah,
Telegram. I don't really use Twitter anymore. I try not to. So Telegram. Telegram's good.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Two very interesting presentations. So yeah, we don't have anything particularly set in stone for what's up next. So if anyone has anything they want to discuss about chain signatures, chain abstraction, have any alpha, please let us know. Or anything coming up. Oh, I see Kendall. Go on, Kendall.
Well, two things that we've been working on, and Ilya kicked off kind of both of these. Let me see if I can pull up. So one is one really powerful use case for chain signatures is actually generating and serializing, like hashing transactions within a near smart contract, then requesting that hash to be signed via chain signatures. This does require building the transaction and hashing it within a smart contract, which is some additional work. So Ilya took a crack at this with a library where he has an example for Near, which is the simplest, and then Ethereum. And we are working on extending that right now for Bitcoin because we actually have a team or a couple teams that need to do this. Let me just find this library real quick so everyone can take a look. All right, here it is. 1 second. There you go. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. There's an example for Ethereum right now and for Near, and we'll one test this and make sure it's actually working, and then make any changes if necessary, and then add Bitcoin to it, hopefully by like the end of next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. And then the other thing is actually pretty similar to what Benji was working on, but with a slightly different intention. It's the idea of basically letting users with different wallets, particularly Bitcoin. There's a lot of teams building Bitcoin use cases that are really just targeting Bitcoin users. They shouldn't actually have to really know that NEAR is in the background at all. But in order to accomplish this requires a couple of things. But one of the challenging parts is using your Bitcoin wallet to interact with NEAR. So what we've been working on, and Ref is looking into this as well, is kind of similar to the Benji's mention of that like hub contract that can essentially manage the master contract for anyone as an entry point to some type of NEAR transaction. The way we're thinking of it is that this hub contract will take in a few different arguments. One is the public key from the Bitcoin wallet that'll be being used, the Bitcoin address being used. The other is a raw payload, and then the final is a signed message. Oh yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it is a pain for sure. Well, that's a little different actually, but somewhat related. The idea here is like the user will actually be using the Bitcoin signed message kind of standard to sign a NEAR transaction, basically like to create an intent to execute a NEAR transaction. Annoyingly, Bitcoin wallets as part of this standard inject like what they call like magic bytes at the beginning to basically make it so people aren't actually signing transactions, because that's a potential phishing attack vector. So that's a little bit of an issue. But what we can do is actually handle that in the NEAR smart contract. So take in that raw payload, that like basically the NEAR transaction to be executed, or at least like the actions to be executed, the public key, and then that signed message using this message standard. Verify that message matches using the EC recover host function in NEAR, and then we can basically create a new NEAR account that'll have an access key that's basically a chain signatures access key on it, so that only this account can basically sign for it, or this chain signatures account can sign for it. Use like a derivation path that probably matches the user's public key, so that it's like, you can repeatedly use it every single time. And then actually use chain signatures to basically control this new NEAR account, thus executing the NEAR transaction that the user had like signed this message as like an intent to execute. And you can even use this to batch up like multiple transactions. So the end result of all of this madness, and sorry I don't have a diagram and just babbling through it, Matt will have something on this soon. The end result of this is that a user who has a Bitcoin wallet, any Bitcoin wallet, can sign and manage transactions on NEAR. And so what we can end up creating with this is basically like Bitcoin lending protocols that let you use just your Bitcoin wallet end to end, and even sign to both, like you could basically sign to borrow USDC against your Bitcoin, and then even like trade it back for Bitcoin and receive it back into your Bitcoin wallet on the Bitcoin network, all with like one transaction. So it'll basically boil down like sending Bitcoin to an account controlled by a NEAR smart contract, which will via the like client that Alex's team built, will be able to recognize your deposit in, say, Burrow, mint like credit you. Okay, you have Bitcoin you can borrow against. Then you sign one more message and you can actually borrow USDT or USDC against it, buy Bitcoin, receive that back on the Bitcoin network. And you can actually do this all before your transaction is even confirmed, like your light client deposit is even confirmed, which might take 10, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how many confirmations the light client is waiting for to recognize your Bitcoin transaction. But then you can know that you'll just have already executed the whole stream of transactions that you wanted to. So you can go away and come back and you'll have already completed this action, which is pretty sweet. So I know that was a lot, but that same pattern can actually be extended to a lot of different things. Like we can basically use any type of signed message standard from a bunch of different wallets to let users then like basically remote control NEAR accounts using it. Fortunately, with Bitcoin, we actually cover Phantom, which is like probably the top wallet that doesn't support NEAR right now that we want, and then every single Bitcoin wallet. But anytime popular wallets come up, we can use a similar pattern.
Awesome. I think I'm gonna watch this back on like 0.25 speed.
Yeah.
Then I can understand.
We'll do like a real presentation for this with diagrams and me talking slowly, or letting Matt do it rather than me. Yeah, Benji, go ahead.
Yeah, that's super neat. That's very similar to something that Oleg was asking us to do, which is like a multi-chain one-click, where you as like an ETH user can just instantly sign into any NEAR DApp. and then sort of sign transactions on Near, but controlled by your ETH account. I'm curious as to what you guys are going to do in terms of like front end UX. So are you landing on a Near app? Like, let's say you have a Bitcoin wallet and you land on Burrow, or are you signing these from within like your Bitcoin wallet app? Or I'm assuming you're landing on Burrow, right?
Yeah, in this case, we'll be landing on some type of front end app. So like initially we'll be focusing on supporting the like injectable browser wallets. So like Unisat, OKX, Phantom, Xverse, I think are the.
So you're going to build out, then you're going to build out wallet selector plugins for that then, right? Because they need some way to sign into Burrow. Yeah.
So I don't think. This would require work from Burrow, right? In this case, like phase one is not designed to be kind of like, oh, just use the wallet selector and like you get this for free for any Near app. It's actually targeting more specifically like new apps that are specific, like really aiming at Bitcoin focused audiences. So like I don't see this in phase one as like Burrow and Ref are now going to be able to, have easy support for Bitcoin wallets, but that is also very possible. Like we could certainly, build this into wallet selector and add support for these Bitcoin wallets. Like I'd say that's like a later phase for sure, but that's definitely viable.
Yeah, because that would let you essentially sign. Like if you built up the wallet sector plugin, then you could essentially sign into any Near app with your Bitcoin wallet and then just start signing transactions. And then behind the scenes, client side magic, you'll be wrapping the transaction, sending to the MPC, and then generating the signature on behalf of the Near wallet, and then from there actually sending it to the Near network.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely worthwhile. I think like if we can expand the wallets people can use in wallet selector to like encompass covering like 95% of crypto users would be amazing, and this is definitely a pathway there. But yeah, we're building this out for like specifically a couple of teams built like targeting Bitcoin users who like need this basically to be able to engage that audience at all, as opposed to like trying to get people who happen to have those wallets to use Near. I think Phantom in particular would be the target for sure for like, okay, these users are probably more likely to want to use Near anyway. Like we do have some crossover with Solana audiences. And so I think that could be a particularly big unlock. But like for Unisat and Xverse, there's probably less of those users who are like also Near users. But it's a good point and definitely worth us doing.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Anything else people want to discuss? Any more questions, or we can go on?
Sorry.
More to say.
I have one question for David, actually. And so we had some requests from, again, Oleg about potentially signing transactions on behalf of existing ETH accounts. Like the reason why the whole multi-chain coolness and that kind of stuff is so neat on Near is because you can just add the key to your Near account. I think you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, so you can do it like if you have like a Gnosis account, you can do it because you can just add the key to your Gnosis account. But like when it comes to actually importing a key, so like first of all, it's like one of the issues is we need to be able to prove malfeasance of like MPC operators. So like if someone imports a key into the MPC system, and then another operators collude and they sign something using that key, we don't really know whether the person who had the key before signed that payload or whether bad MPC operators sign that payload, and that kind of breaks down our whole like slashing model. So I'm very, very reticent to like. I think yeah, absolutely, we should work out do stuff with Gnosis because that's a really good way of doing it. As like sort of have our key as an input, so what's running by our face. But I think actually importing it is like super dangerous, and then like a lot of stuff breaks down. Like you could look at like the history of the key and then allow it to be locked, and actually previously they could have signed a bunch of things that would allow you to drain the funds beforehand. So it's kind of it breaks the model basically entirely. That's so probably not.
Okay.
Yes, Ben.
Yeah, I think this was actually a perfect segue. I wanted to bring up something else, but instead, since you guys mentioned this stuff with Safe, I've already put together a library here that allows us to do this.
Sick.
And I'll put a link here now. It's not released yet as an NPM package, but it probably will be sometime. So this is a perfect time to describe what happens. Really, what's happening here is that the EVM address that you are assigned through your Near account becomes the signer of a safe, and it uses all of this, I can't remember, ERC, whatever the ERC standard for account abstraction is, so that it's also really cute and seamless because you will immediately, because of create two, you'll know what the address of the safe will be before you even bother to deploy it. And you can build your first transaction and it will look, everything will look all fine, and the safe itself won't even be deployed until it will be deployed along with the transaction that is your first. So
it's called like lazy contracts.
Yeah, it's lazy because you have these deterministic addresses, and you're also, it's got this already, at least this feature where I say, I don't want to fully trust this MPC contract, or I want to at least be able to recover this account that I care about in case the MPC contract goes rogue or something. So it creates this safe as a single signer account, and then also allows you to add some EOA or some other account as an additional owner at the time of deployment. I think we'll probably, I think I've been working at Mintbase and putting this chain signature stuff into their wallet now. I think the initial release, although it's a little unfortunate, will probably use the EOA that you get from the MPC contract directly. But I think in the very near future, it's just a little confusing for people with this like chain of accounts. You have your Near account, and then you have this other EOA that's coming from the MPC contract, and then you have this safe. But this stuff all is running using like Pimlico as some sort of account abstraction provider, because the way that you propose and submit transactions is totally different there. Nice thing is that this is all under the hood, and this is the complex stuff that people don't necessarily, even devs don't necessarily want to learn about. Yeah, I would maybe recommend taking it a look. It's still pretty young. There's the two things that are sort of special there are all this safe implementation. You need this collection of contracts from safe that like give you the deterministic addresses and like all these deployed multi-send relayers and stuff. Ideally, the safe SDK would provide all of this functionality, but right now it's here written all raw. It doesn't need to actually use the safe SDK. And then there's these bundlers, these ERC 4337 bundler services.
That looks super cool, man. That's and on the other side, like in a similar timeline to when Benji is going to do multi-chain keep on, which is at some point in time when we have time. We'd really love to find a way to put like multi-chain keys inside Gnosis safes. So actually you go through your Gnosis safe and then you suddenly have a Bitcoin key in the middle of it, which I think is a really like interesting use case of this technology. Like, because maybe it's not the most secure thing in the world, but it's still kind of like a useful way of gating all this stuff. So it's kind of the opposite of what you're building. You're doing chain signatures to control Gnosis safes, and we're using Gnosis safes to control chain signatures. But they're both useful.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've been going backwards on everything. I've also been doing this wallet connect stuff where you want to connect to your apps, and we'll be putting, I mean, this is just basic wallet connect. You just create a connection through an API, and you get these signature requests from the other app, but it's all, I guess I'm EVM focused and making use of you.
I mean, they're both useful. It's bijections are good. Really cool. I'm really impressed with what you're working on. You always seem to be the person who asks the most difficult questions on the developer Telegram chats, which is always good.
Actually, I wanted to ask if anybody's even using this Near CA library. I mean, this safe project is using the Near CA library. I was hoping maybe if anybody is looking for feedback, because I want to release a version 1 soon. And if anybody's been having issues with clumsy naming or whatever, I'm also putting this all of the Wallet Connect stuff now under a beta like feature, so you'll access it as like adapter.beta.handle session request or something like this, so that basically so we can release a version 1 and then reserve the right to rename some stuff as it evolves once we start using it.
always sensible to cover your bases. I think unfortunately we're out of time, but it's a really good community call. It's nice to chat about this stuff. I definitely like the chatting bit. That's always nice.
Yeah, I think we should try in the future slimming down on like presentations. I think they're cool and interesting, but you get a lot more out of this talk for sure.
I like the presentation stick though. I'm not talking any shit about anyone's presentation.
No, the presentations are great. Okay. Thank you, everyone.